Welcome to, this is the board meeting for November the 4th, 2021. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Tonight, our JRTC is from Reynolds High School, and these students, cadets, are instructed by Lieutenant Colonel David Wise, U.S. Army retired, and Sergeant First Class Jamie M. Brown, U.S. Army retired. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight, as we observe our moment of silence, I'd like for us to focus our thoughts on our veterans and the veterans that have given their life and their time for us to be able to celebrate freedom. Let's have a moment of silence.
Father, hallowed be thy name. Will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, power, glory, forever. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. I'd also like to ask if there are veterans in the room, would you mind standing so we can give you an applause? Thank you. At this time, I am seeking approval of the agenda. Could I get a motion to approve?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Dr. Baldwin.
Madam Chair, certainly appreciate you recognizing our veterans and Veterans Day and sacrifices that those individuals have made for all of our freedoms. Good afternoon, everyone, and in the spirit of the Thanksgiving holiday season, which is around the corner, I'd like to begin by expressing my thanks for 51 consecutive school days since August 23rd of in-person classroom instruction for our students and staff. And I saw a number of principals with thumbs up. I recognize those 51 days in comparison to the last school year, when our students were able to receive classroom instruction 5 days a week, only 27% of the entire year. Likewise, I have a pause on a second expression of thanks. I hope to be giving it very soon once we receive the finalized state budget for the current school year. As a school system that relies on state funding for 64% of our total operating budget, those numbers are very important. On a separate note, I want to recognize the dedicated efforts and contributions both of our staff and students that are being provided to a concerted focus on recovery. And you may recall that when I've spoken about our recovery in the schools, it has been twofold: academic recovery and social, emotional, and mental health recovery. Principals, teachers, and district support staff have expressed their optimism To me, with the success, and with many of our district staff as well, I might add, thus far on our academic recovery. And once again, the ability to receive quality in-person instruction from teachers in the classroom is so significant. Recovery within the areas of social, emotional, and mental wellness has tended to be more challenging. The adjustments and the transitions from a more confined remote environment in front of a computer to the daily in-person experiences continue to require additional time, especially as we remain under COVID protocol. And in closing, I would add that this area of focus is not just relevant to our students, but it has impacted teachers, administrators, and support staff in all areas of our schools. I would like to recognize at this time Associate Superintendent Suzanne Swanger, because it is also that time to discuss our inclement weather plan, as November also traditionally brings the potential for school delays and closures. So, Ms. Swanger.
Is to provide as much consistent instruction during the winter season as we can. And the North Carolina calendar law, which we operate under, this law for this year allows us to now use up to 5 days or 30 hours for remote instruction when we have to have weather closures. So in essence, our schools will use those 5 days as synchronous and asynchronous learning as winter approaches, and we have a plan for that. We know that this quality instructional time will count towards the minimum hours required by the state calendar law, and that's 1,025. And we say minimum because we always exceed those laws. We believe in the integrity of the school year. It takes more than 1,025 hours to do the work that needs to be done. And we know that, especially in the recovery time that Dr. Baldwin just referenced. Because of our one-to-one blended learning initiative, Buncombe County School students may continue learning from home during winter disruptions. With all of this in mind, safety of our students and our staff remains our top priority. So what do a few of these types of situations look like? Annual leave days, as we see across the TV screen, that means people stay home. There is no remote learning for students. And staff will have messaging that will tell them whether they're eligible to work or not. So that is when snow or weather is very severe and we don't have anyone traveling. But most likely you will see optional teacher work day for inclement weather, and that will be a remote learning day. And that first day that we announce that, students will participate in asynchronous learning. And what does asynchronous mean? We got really good at this last year. It means that teachers will post assignments, quality learning tasks by 10 a.m. of that day. It gives families time to make a plan for childcare if necessary and get students situated so that they can check their device, check their learning platform. We're taking our devices home every night so that we can do those tasks at home at our leisure. If there's snow on the ground, families can enjoy with their student the snowy weather, play outside in the snow, and do their work at their leisure. So they'll have a specific amount of time to make up that work, turn those work projects in to be counted. So we think that's a win-win for students to be able to do that, have time to enjoy the snow, but also have time to stay connected to the learning. It's so important that we don't lose instructional time. What's new this year? Well, school buildings will be open on those days, but staff members who are able to complete assigned job functions from home may also work remotely on inclement weather optional teacher work days. Because it counts toward instructional hours, teacher assistants, instructional assistants may also provide support from their home if they're able to do so. But our school buildings will be open because we know that some staff may just prefer to be inside the school building. So we are excited that we have that blended learning environment. We have the devices. We know how to complete remote learning based on our experiences last year. So that will be what an optional teacher workday looks like. If one day out is not enough and we need to close school the second day, any subsequent day from this optional teacher workday, it will be a bit different. We will ask staff to come into the building and start teaching synchronously by 10 a.m. That gives families time to, again, get their students situated for the day, but students will be expected to log on at 10 o'clock with their teacher and have a blend of Zoom or assignments. They will be teaching at the same time. So synchronous means at the same time. So that will be more like a day of school. So we're excited that we will have that opportunity, and we will be very careful in our messaging to make sure it's deliberate and everyone understands that. In fact, that's what will happen next. Station, our communications team will share information so that families and our staff members know what's expected, because we do know winter weather is around the corner. For families, please, please, please check your contact information inside Power School to make sure that we can share these messages with you in the event that we have weather. But I will assure the public and our staff and our families that we have dedicated staff that are out early. Mr. Huff, Dr. Baldwin are out with our bus garage. They really do a very thorough job of checking the community roads, making sure that it's safe to run buses and that students are safe to drive and families are safe to drive before they make these hard decisions. And we always take into account the safety for our students, our staff, and our families. So we are prepared for winter weather.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board?
I'd just like to say I appreciate all the thoughtful planning that has gone into this over the last few months, because I know y'all have actually been talking about this when it was pretty and sunny and 80 outside. So thank you so much for all
We
the
have a
hard
great
work.
team. Lots of good heads went together to problem solve.
Thank you. I think it's going to be a very positive thing for our employees.
Thank you.
All right, it's time for good news.
Good evening, Dr. Baldwin, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tonight we have 3 items of good news to share with everyone. So first up, we'll start off our good news by inviting Ms. Swanger back to the podium. She's going to help us recognize Laura Mitchell. Laura is our District Art Specialist. She's been named the NCAE Administration Art Educator of the Year. So Ms. Swanger, if you could come back up, and if Ms. Mitchell could come on to the front.
As Stacia mentioned, I'm so excited to present to you Laura Mitchell, one of our fabulous K-12 district specialists who works with our arts educators across our district. And she has been named the Art Educator of the Year by North Carolina Art Association. So she is recognized not only at the local level, but at the state level. In her district-wide work, Ms. Mitchell engages with students, with teachers, administrators, parents, and our community arts organizations. She forms partnerships, she looks for opportunities to collaborate and to celebrate the work that our students are doing while supporting educators as they grow in their craft. We have student artists that you will see evidence of their work at places where we have All-County Chorus or All-County Band or our Visual Arts Festival. Last year we couldn't do some of those things, so there were a lot of virtual art celebrations. And she was very committed to making sure that families and students still got to share their talents in a virtual space. She holds true to Buncombe County School commitments to provide high-quality arts instruction. And if you know her, she's always advocating for students and her arts educators. She's passionate about her work. And if you didn't know, she is a mom. She has a fiance that might be here this evening. I think there are wedding plans in the works. But here's the fact that you may not know. She is a marathon runner. So she could smoke any of us in any race in the curriculum department. So please join me in celebrating Laura Mitchell.
Thank you, Suzanne. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to the board. If we didn't have a Board of Education that supported arts education, then we would not have the quality of programs that we have for our students. So thank you. Thank you to our district leadership. Thank you to our principals. Thank you to all the parents out there and to all of our community members, because our community partners provide so many things for our students. So it takes a team of us to make good work happen so that we can provide these opportunities and experiences for our students. And we're so grateful that the arts have continued, and y'all have helped that by helping keep our students safe. And we are so excited to have live performances again. So we invite you to come out Tuesday night to the Wortham Center for our first all-county event since February 2020. And so we're excited to have our high school chorus. I'll be slipping out early because I'm heading to a performance tonight at Inca High School for a theater production. So anyway, thanks to everybody and have a good night.
Thank you.
And for our next item of good news this evening, we'll invite Carol Sass to come to the podium. Ms. Sass is going to help us recognize Owen Middle School's James Michael Sapp. He is the NCA CTE Student Teacher of the Year. So James Michael, if you could come to the front. And Ms. Sass, podium's yours.
Carol Sass, and I am the beginning teacher specialist for Buncombe County Schools, and it's my privilege to work with James as one of our beginning teachers. James, congratulations on receiving this distinct award. At this time, I'd like to read some words from your math coach who could not be here tonight. And she writes, Mr. Sapp has created an inviting, positive, and encouraging learning environment in his classroom. His students respond well to his vibrant personality and benefit greatly from his creativity. For instance, Mr. Sapp designed a lesson where students selected items from a restaurant menu that corresponded to a math task. This unique design to review a lesson provided students choice and opportunity to collaborate. Mr. Sapp reaches beyond traditional resources to make math relevant for his students. In a partnership with local restaurant owners, his students learn to make authentic horchata while applying their math knowledge to proportions. These examples are just a glimpse at how Mr. Sapp strives to engage all students in learning mathematics. So James, congratulations. We are so fortunate to have you here at Buncombe County Schools and working with our middle school students at Owen Middle School. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you. I would like to give a thank you to my home school, Owen, for the opportunity to begin my teaching career here. I grew up in Swannanoa and also graduated from Owen Middle and Owen High School. I didn't have teachers that looked like me growing up, so I'm glad to serve as a positive role model and educator to our community. I'd also like to say that I'm grateful to work with a staff who is supportive and who supports positive social change, cares for all students, but isn't allowed to show that Black students matter, and the care for queer and trans youth. So thank you, Owen Middle.
Your award in the
I think it's very interesting that your last name is Sapp. The old apple did not fall far from the tree when it came to math. Oh, yeah. Mom's here. She's an AG.
And for our final item of good news this evening, we want to celebrate Shannon Boyd and our Family Resource Center, which has earned several large grants and awards over the last few months in recognition of their support of vulnerable families in Buncombe County. So if David Thompson could come down, he's our Director of Student Services, and Ms. Boyd, come on down and you can stand in the center.
Good evening, Dr. Baldwin and members of the board. Student Services Department would like to recognize and celebrate the outstanding accomplishments of Ms. Shannon Boyd, who is our McKinney-Vento homeless liaison for Buncombe County Schools. She has worked tirelessly developing and implementing something out of nothing for our Family Resource Center. The center was developed very, very quickly at the beginning of the COVID pandemic to respond to the basic needs of our families and students who were impacted adversely by the loss of employment, the housing loss of other community supports, and became fairly isolated. So she mobilized very quickly a group of staff to keep them employed to do food delivery and basic needs delivery to our families. And the donations poured in and kept pouring in. And her work has continued, it has grown and has expanded. It is not only known throughout Buncombe County Schools, but throughout the community with many community partners who have contributed to this effort that we hope to continue forever. She has received several pretty impressive awards in the community for her work that we would like to recognize and celebrate, as well as one just from her peers within Student Services that recognizes her for what she means to them. So among those awards that she has received recently are a COVID Humanitarian Award that was awarded by the Chamber of Commerce, along with a big event down at Salvage Station to celebrate the participants who received that award within the community. She's also received a Parsec Prize that carries a $10,000 prize to apply toward her work from the Parsec Financial Services that will continue to build the Family Resource Center. And the big one that she has, grant that she has received is $100,000 from the Dogwood Health Trust to make sure that we meet, not only do we meet the needs of those students, but we really look at some career and college readiness for this group of disadvantaged kids. So one of the things Ms. Boyd plans to do with that is to organize a statewide college tour to expose students to opportunities that they may not have known existed and encourage them to do post-secondary work. Last on this impressive list is the award from her school counselor and school social worker peers. Ms. Boyd was recognized by her peers as the Inspiring Innovator Award. And this is the first time Student Services has ever given this award, but the title that was chosen is on purpose. She is both innovative and she is inspiring. And we really appreciate her positivity, her perseverance. Her presence among her peers is encouraging and positive, and I've never seen her have a bad day. Most of us do. You will hear from her later on in the programs as she describes the work that she's doing from the Family Resource Center. But if you haven't been, board members, if you haven't been out there, you need to get there. It's pretty impressive. There is furniture, there's clothing, there's cleaning supplies, there's personal hygiene items, and even a boutique where families can come and shop for their clothes. So it's all set up and decorated. So if you have not been, I encourage you to get out there and see that. because her work is there. And we're really trying to look for more grants so that perhaps we could build a permanent center. Right now it's located back behind Inca Middle School. But I do want to recognize her, and I want you to join me in celebrating the work that she has done so far this year.
And that concludes good news for this evening.
Thank you. Now time for public comment. Are we ready?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, we do have 10 public comment sign-ups for tonight. Our first public comment is Michael Lindsay. I would like to remind you that you will have 3 minutes to speak, and the microphone does automatically turn off after 3 minutes. I'll give you a motion for 1 minute and for 30 seconds. There's also a timer right here on the dais in the corner if you're looking for it, but I'll give these motions nonetheless. If you could start by saying your name, that'd be great. Thank you.
My name's Michael Lindsay. I live in Black Mountain, North Carolina. What if the injection is not, never was a vaccine? It meets none of the previous definitions of what a vaccine does. It does not protect you from getting the virus. It does not prevent you from spreading the virus, and it does not prevent you from dying from the virus. What if it's not safe? The CDC, which I have a special name for, their own reporting system for vaccine adverse events called VAERS is reporting over 17,000 deaths and 800,000 adverse events from this vaccine, so-called vaccine, which is more than all other vaccines combined in the last 30 years. History shows that around 1% of injuries are reported. That's from a multi-year Harvard study. So I'll let you do the math. That means around 170,000 to 1.7 million. And by the way, total mortality in the U.S. this year is up 18% over the previous high year, which was 2018. So would you call that safe? So if it's not a vaccine and it's not safe, then what is it and why is it being forced on the world? What if the true rulers of the world believe the only way to save the planet is to get rid of most of the people? Bill Gates said so in a TED Talk, so too has Klaus Schwab, head of the World Economic Forum, and so did Operation Lockstep by the Rockefeller Foundation. And let's not forget the Georgia Guidestones. Maintain humanity at 500 million in harmony with nature. They even tell you how they plan to do it. Release a virus and depopulate with vaccines. What if it's actually the smartest biological weapon the world has ever seen? It destroys your natural immunity and it decimates your ability to repair your DNA. Cancer is already exploding all over the world with every other type of life-ending organ failure. Please, please, please do not force this on the kids. Please do not sacrifice our children to this grotesque, demonic agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to call Bill Maudlin next. Bill Maudlin. Again, you'll have 3 minutes, and please begin with your name when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Bill Maudlin. I live in Alexander. That last one is a little hard to follow. Anyway, listen, I want to thank you for doing your jobs. Thank you. You're following the science, you're following the evidence, and you're doing what you have to do to protect the health and safety of the kids and of the staff, and by extension, their families, and by extension, the community. We live in an odd time. I'll give you a little example. And after I conclude my remarks, I'm going home because I work nights and I got up at 8:30 and I've had a full day, including a dentist appointment. Some years ago, a few years back, a good friend of mine, very good friend of mine, called me in a panic and told me that the Highway Patrol, this was before a holiday weekend, was going to write tickets to everyone going 1 mile an hour over the speed limit or more. I told her this wasn't true. I mean, can you imagine the court days? And her response was, but it's all over Facebook. This is where we're at. This is where we are, folks. And all I got to say is thank you. And thank you for some of you returning my voicemail a few months ago. I had wonderful conversations with a few of you. And again, you know, just thank you for doing your jobs. That's what you're here for, and that's what you're doing. And, you know, we gripe a lot, people gripe a lot about government. Well, government is why we're not falling into potholes on the road, why we don't have to look up in the air and worry about a plane crashing. Government employees are why we can take a drink of tap water and not go to the hospital. They're why Osama bin Laden is fish food. So thank you folks for doing what you're doing. And now after a very long day, I'm going to go to the house.
Thank you, sir. I want to remind people in the audience to be respectful of the speakers. Next person, please.
Yes, ma'am. Our next public comment, I'd like to call Kenneth Parks. This will be followed by Don Yelton. If you could begin with your name, and you'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Kenneth Greg Parks. Wished I could drive on the same roads that the previous gentleman did. That would be great, no potholes. But hopefully the board here tonight has been put on notice by the recent elections across the country. I hope that you have realized that mandates, critical race theory, SEL curriculums are not wanted in our school systems. You saw this across the country in the elections. November 2022 will be here soon, and parents and voters in Buncombe County will have their opportunity to stand against the divisive programs and unwanted mandates. 25 schools currently in Buncombe County have been designated as target support and improvement schools by the state. In short, this means that there are subgroups in our schools that are not performing to the educational standards of the state. What is the board going to do, and what are they planning to do to help these schools? And keep in mind, this is pre-COVID. You got a pass last year because of COVID. So COVID didn't affect this rating. Also, currently we have 112 open positions in our Buncombe County school system, according to your website. Why? Could someone provide details how we're going to fill these positions, or is it just going to become normal to have underperforming and understaffed schools in our county? I hope not. However, it was made clear at the last board meeting by a couple of board members, they believe they are doing a great job. One even took time to write a little speech bragging about their performance in the Robertson district. It was even mentioned that one board member had been doing this for 15 years. I am sorry, underperforming and understaffed schools is not acceptable performance. And for the Irwin District board member with 15 years of service, did you know that your district has the most schools that was designated by the state as underperforming in the county? Did you know? Are you involved? I guess it is more important to play politics with mass mandates harmful curriculums than to provide our schools with tools and resources they need to educate our children. November 2022, Robertson, Inca, and Irwin districts will be up for re-election. I think it's time for a change. I'm putting you on notice that there will be no uncontested race in the Irwin district. This time, I will be fighting for the kids and parents and members of this county, as well as all of Buncombe County. And I hope others join me in the Robertson, Inca districts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Don Yelton. This will be followed by Elizabeth Lovett. You can begin with your name.
Well, I think everybody knows me, especially the chair of your board up there, because I watched her when she talked to a citizen like it was trash a minute ago, and I've seen that happen out of this board twice. But by the way, Tony, I want to thank you for taking your mask off when you talk. The rest of you members up there, it is legal to take your mask off when you're talking, and when you got your mask, nobody can hear what you're saying, especially if you're not feeling good about what you're saying. So all my speech that I had made up for tonight, I threw out the window. I've got a list here of about 50 things that the money from COVID can be spent on. Parents, your kids are being sold for money, okay? Now, we talked about science, and we had one man talk about science. Science does not give you the end results. Science teaches you how to examine. Get that. That's real important. Science does not tell you what to say. It tells you how to think, and you know that's true, Tony. So when everybody starts using science, they're totally abusing the word for science. I heard a well-educated doctor give a presentation last Thursday, and he said, you need to decide for yourself between you and your healthcare professional what you're going to do. But as I sat here and I watched these meetings, and I've watched them for a long time, I just happened to pop back in on this issue because I see this group up here as elite. You look down on the people out here, and you plan this meeting to bring people in and pat them on the back for what they're doing. That's what you do. It's a self-praising opportunity for you to slap each other on the back in front of the public and create something you can put on TV. And I'm telling you, folks, the people are tired of that. I don't have any kids, but I'm tired of it. I'm tired of seeing members of that board treat public like trash, because you wouldn't be there if we wasn't paying taxes. And I'm tired of seeing people misquote what science is. I've told you before, I've got 2 master's degrees, one in biology and one in engineering. And if anybody wants to discuss in depth what COVID is and how it's working and what's going on, I'll be more than glad to meet with you one-on-one. I can tell you that right now. And I'll meet with you one-on-one anytime you want to meet me, so call me. But folks, the list is right here. It's about the money, period. And I gave you 12 seconds back, and I've got to leave too, because I'm going to go have supper with a friend of my wife's that survived cancer. And to me, that's more important than sitting here glad-handed.
Elizabeth Lovett. Elizabeth Lovett, followed by
Hi.
Sarah Disher.
I am here for an 8-year-old autistic, high-functioning child that cannot speak for himself tonight because he's at home with Grandpa. We have had to daily struggle with a mask every day. We love Emma. He goes to Emma right up the road. And we love the principal, Ms. Shipman. Oh, she's amazing. We love his teachers. We love everybody. We just can't handle the mask. We cannot handle virtual. There's no virtual options this year. Every day it's a struggle. He wears glasses. We're on day 3 of can't find his glasses because he's hid them because he will not wear the glasses with his mask. And it literally has me in tears every day because he doesn't want to go to school now. This is a 3rd grader who doesn't want to wear a mask. And he does it, he loves everybody. I mean, he's the most sweetest child. But this has become an issue in our lives more than anything, that That's the only place he wears his mask is at school. We go to the grocery store, it's not required. We go to everywhere, it's not required. So why is it required for our children to be covered up and suffer, especially the ones with special needs, to have to wear a mask? It's not right. And that's why I'm here. I had to be his voice. I have been his voice for 8 years. And I have no excuses. I live 2 rows up. And today I said I'm going to go so he can be heard. And that's all.
Thank you.
Sarah Disher, followed by Kim Presley. Again, please start with your name. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Sarah Disher Ratliff. I live in the Reynolds District, and I have 1 son at Reynolds High School, 1 at Cane Creek, and 2 at Fairview Elementary. On November 2nd, I received the Board of Education regular meeting notes for tonight's meeting. Upon reviewing the action agenda, I opened a link for a proposed calendar change that stated, due to the COVID obstacles and challenges facing school personnel and students during fall semester, district leadership is requesting to adjust November 22nd and November 23rd to student remote learning days. Under the North Carolina calendar law for 21 and 22 school year, BCS may use up to 30 hours for remote instruction. I turned around and emailed Dr. Baldwin and Ms. Franklin after reviewing this, indicating my position on the proposed change at the beginning, and as of the beginning of this meeting, I never got a response. I also made a point to make sure that other parents were aware of the possible change, and as of last night, the link is no longer available, and therefore the public can no longer view the item up for discussion. This is a perfect example of how the board, administration, and faculty are out of touch with the needs of parents, especially those who are working or have multiple children. Most businesses require a minimum of at least 5 business days to request time off. The company I work for requires a minimum of 2 weeks. Add in the fact that the dates in question are already part of a condensed week given the holiday, and parents are going to be left scrambling for childcare. Stating that challenges exist for students and staff due to COVID as the reason for this request is ludicrous. Did we learn nothing from a year of remote learning? The majority of students suffer in the remote learning environment. Test scores, student engagement, and participation decline. Students should be able to look forward to their 3-day Thanksgiving break, not worry with how they're going to complete work for the first 2 days of the week. As Mr. Baldwin stated at the beginning of this meeting, the impact that in-person learning has had on students and staff is tangible. Therefore, asking for this change is both irresponsible and disrespectful to parents. As Ms. Wenger indicated, this time is allowed to be used on potential snow days in order to alleviate the issue of extending the calendar into summer or removing other pre-scheduled time off. However, one side note to her comments. Most parents don't have the luxury to situate their kid before 10 o'clock in the morning. I have to still go to work every single day and be there by 7:30 in the morning, no questions asked, and leave my kid at home to be latchkey. In closing, I would ask that you reevaluate this request and not approve it. Parents give schools the privilege of teaching their children 6 to 7 hours a day, and you need to remember those parents. They elect you. Those parents are the ones who have to make do with so many decisions beyond their control. Give them the ability to take something off of their plate during this extremely hectic time. With the number of teacher work days and early release days that are already on the schedule, parents are already stretched thin, especially those with limited support systems in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call Kim Presley, followed by Sarah Wilcox. Please start with your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Kim Presley. I live in the Robertson School District, and I have a grandson that goes to Glen Arden Elementary. First, I would like to thank each of you for your service to our community. I know it is not easy, and I appreciate the time you have committed to educating yourselves, listening to parents and teachers, and to other experts on various topics. I recognize that the decisions you have to make are difficult and not easily arrived at. I am grateful for the careful consideration that is given to each decision. I am also a registered nurse in a primary care physician's office, and I have been on the front line of the pandemic since the beginning. I know that we're still under a county-wide mask mandate until at least November the 30th. As a medical professional and a grandparent, I would strongly encourage the board to continue the current policy on masking in our schools no matter what the county decides as we get closer to November the 30th. If you keep the current policy in place, it gives younger children a chance to be vaccinated, and it gives us time for the current number of cases to continue to decrease. In short, it would give us additional time for the current situation to continue to improve, making things safer for the youngest among us. Again, I truly appreciate your service and your willingness to grapple with these difficult decisions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call Sarah Wilcox. This will be followed by Gloria Michael. Please start with your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Reverend Sarah Wilcox. Good evening. My primary objective this night is to offer deep gratitude again for the work of this board and the countless staff and teachers who serve our children in this school system. Leadership is a thankless job. You're asked to listen to the hearts and minds of contradictory positions without response or comment. You're asked to listen and be respectful even when others are not inclined to do the same and in face of disinformation. Thank you for your service and continued commitment to health and safety in our schools. I am a pastor married to a scientist. We both applaud your work to protect our children. As a parent, but also as someone who works in an institution where people gather, your commitment to remote opportunities for inclement weather is admirable, innovative, and indicative of taking the lessons of what is possible from the past year and a half. But as spoken by the previous parent, I would be deep in my privilege to not also acknowledge the very complicated reality it creates for parents. Today, I want to affirm the teaching of history and the value of empathy created when kids and adults are allowed to see and hear hard things. The American idolatry of individualism steals empathy from our children, and it feeds the refusal to teach an accurate portrayal of our nation's history. Do I wish that European colonizers didn't engage in native genocide and the enslavement of Africans to help bring forth the bounty of this nation, primarily for white folks? Of course. It's a devastating truth of our past. In the same way, I wish that Jesus Christ wasn't killed on a cross at Calvary. It's a devastating truth. But not only do I acknowledge it, the Christian faith acknowledges it every single year, lest we forget the failures that led to the death of the living Christ. To suggest denying our history serves our children or our community is steeped in a call to ignorance and apathy. We all deserve better. I pray that any future conversations about how we teach our children history will be met with a clear statement and commitment to teach an honest history that refuses to celebrate the achievements of America without naming the very real costs of human life and dignity, as well as the very real truths that the land we stand on was stolen and the economic strength of this nation was first built by the hands of enslaved Africans. The bounty of this nation requires clarity of how we got here and the real costs and human suffering that took place to get here. As responsible adults, we should take seriously our responsibility to teach honest and hard history so that we can end the perpetual harm caused to so many even to this day. May we refuse apathy, intentional ignorance, and continued idolatry. We are not just exceptional Americans. We have done exceptional violence. We shall repent.
Thank you.
Our next public comment, I'd like to call Gloria Michael. This will be followed by Ciel Walco. Please start with your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name's Gloria Michael, and I'm from Black Mountain. My name is Gloria Michael, and I'm from Black Mountain. I really didn't prepare, but I was listening to Elizabeth's story back here, and it just broke my heart just hearing about her little boy. And so I just want to say that I agree with her, and y'all need to rethink your decision about the kids and the mask mandates. Let me leave you with a verse that my favorite And my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, will forgive their sin, and will heal their land. Well, I thank y'all for being here tonight, and I really appreciate y'all, and have a great night, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our last public comment for this evening, Ciel Walco.
My name is Ciel Walco. I'm not a parent, but I am a taxpayer. And I know that the children that you all are raising and teaching and educating will soon become our leaders, our doctors, our attorneys, our professionals, our parents. And so it does concern me how these children are being educated. I want to thank you, Dr. Baldwin, for recognizing and remembering our liberty and our veterans. Is something that is very important to me. I only signed up to speak at the very last minute, and it's not so much that I'm nervous, which I am, but I don't want to be labeled a domestic terrorist. And this is where we are at now in this country. If we speak out our opinion, if we say something that goes against the mainstream narrative, we're suddenly labeled as domestic terrorists. I want to just say for the record, I am not violent. I am not a terrorist. I mean you no harm. I acknowledge the work that you all are doing. I know this is a hard job in a hard time. But I do want to say this. As you can see from my t-shirt, you know how I feel. I am a health practitioner, and I have done hundreds of hours of research, and I want to say that if the science were settled, it wouldn't be science. We have to continue to study. We have to continue to learn and understand, and there's so much controversy and so much disparity in what we think of as mainstream scientific proof. You have to look at that. You have to understand that so many of the people that are espousing the vaccines and the masking and the everything, many of those are vested interests, and they're being paid by the corporations. So what I want to say is this, very simply. I'm sure, I would hope that you all were paying attention to what happened in Virginia Tuesday night. Because if you don't listen to these people and the parents and take them into consideration, their needs, and I'm talking everybody, not just a few, then you and you and you are going to be next.
Thank you.
Thank you. That does conclude our public comment this evening.
Thank you, sir. The next item on our agenda is the action agenda, and the first item is...
Ma'am, we got a, Madam Chair, curriculum feature.
You know, I forget that one every daggum time.
I'm forgettable. Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
We would like to invite Shannon Boyd back up to give you a little bit about the nuts and bolts of this very special Family Resource Center. It began in a closet. COVID moved that closet to the back in Nesbitt cafeteria, and I know that you walked through there and you saw all the food, all the items that families needed. You saw people delivering. You helped us repurpose our staff when they couldn't be teaching or working inside a school to deliver meals and goods to families. Well, it's just expanded into a beautiful Hope Boutique. And I do hope that you will visit Inca Middle School. She can tell you exactly where it is. It's sort of in the back. But she started with 1 room, 2 rooms, 3 rooms. Now she's got a modular or 2. So she just keeps spreading out. So we would like to thank Inca Middle School for welcoming Shannon and this wonderful resource center.
All right. Thank you, Suzanne.
So first, I do want to say thank you for David for the award and for my peers. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I'd also like to just thank Dr. Baldwin and Suzanne and Joe. There's been so many people. I think this has been a journey. And so anyway, so I just want to say thank you, and David, so much for your support and just believing in the work that we're doing. And so it's pretty special. So if you're not, there's a couple of you on my agenda to come out and visit. So if you're not, please come. So it's pretty easy to find. We are located at Inca Middle School. So back in March of 2020, I approached Dr. Baldwin and shared my concerns about feeding our vulnerable students. And so his response was, whatever you need. And so you probably didn't realize that we would be here today and we would have 5 classrooms extended from that little bitty closet. So thank you for whatever you need. So it has been great. So we began delivering 41 meals. We had 2 county cars and we delivered 41 meals that first week of March 16th. And by the end of that school year, I think it was June 4th, we were delivering 912 meals in 20 county cars a day, and that was across the county. And so we had 46 teacher assistants, bus drivers, custodians who graciously volunteered to be on the front lines. And so it was a great time, and we enjoyed that so much. And so now at the Resource Center, we have expanded. So one of the things that we look at for McKinney-Vento students is providing some case management services. And so that is for identified McKinney-Vento students and families. And so we provide, along with that, we provide basic needs. We have furniture, home goods, and then we do have our newly opened clothing boutique. So in addition to not just only McKinney-Vento students, we serve all students and families within Buncombe County who have a need. So I'm getting used to that 45 schools now that we have virtual. So we're serving all 45 schools. So.
Ms. Boyd, for the public, can you explain what McKinney-Vento is very briefly?
I can, yes. So McKinney-Vento is a law that serves our students that are identified as homeless. So when we look at that, we look at a student that does not have a fixed, regular, or adequate nighttime residency. So this slide is some data, and so as of November the 3rd, we have identified 285 McKinney-Vento students. And then out of that 285, 51 have been referred to us for case management services. And so that means we are helping families who come into the center. If they can't come to the center, we'll go to them. And we'll help them apply for public or tenant-based housing. We help them locate affordable or low-income housing, apply for SNAP benefits, Medicaid. We do mental health referrals, employment assistance, and we also do life coach referrals. So it's also a service that we have now. So our goal at the Family Resource Center is to be a one-stop for our families with significant needs. So when they leave the center or they leave wherever we've met them, they have a plan in place. So families are referred to our center by our school social workers, and they also refer not just for case management services, but for the food bags, hygiene, laundry kits, diapers, wipes, household cleaning supplies, home goods, and clothing. So it's not just for that case management. So our students and families are what make our work impactful and immensely rewarding. So I can say without a doubt when I leave work every day that, I don't know, I can go home and I can sleep knowing that I've done everything I can to help our families. And so all of these families have given us permission to share, and it's just an honor to work with them. So the family here in the largest picture, we just set them up in permanent housing. So we provided them with any and everything that they needed. So they just moved into permanent housing. And so that was with the help through the case management services. So applying for the housing and then doing the process. So with the Asheville Housing Authority. So what does the future hold for the Family Resource Center? So this is a dream, so with sufficient funding, we would love to build a 6,400 square foot building. And so this is a centrally located building that's on the bus line. And so these designs are by Tim Fairley, our Director of Facilities and Planning, who is phenomenal. So Tim, I presented him with looked like a kindergarten drawing. So it was rather funny, and I think he's kind of kept that drawing. So, but anyway, and he's come up with this. So in addition to all of the services that we provide now, we want to offer our unaccompanied homeless youth a drop-in center. So we typically identify 95 unaccompanied homeless youth, and so that means they're not living in the care of a parent or guardian. So we would also like to offer shower and laundry facilities, so that's reducing that barrier for school attendance, mentor and tutoring services, and then parent engagement nights, training and education just to connect the community and the school. Job fairs, so helping bridge the unemployment gap as well. So we are so proud of the work that we've done so far. I have a team of, we call it the dream team, and so I have a full-time staff member and 3 part-time staff members, and so that's how we get the work done. So we're busy, and we love what we do every day. So we look forward to what the future holds. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like for you guys to know that I did ride with her distribution early on in this journey.
Yes.
And I was so impressed, the relationship that these people, these volunteers, I guess they were volunteers, these drivers had with the community, the families that they were dealing with, and how they knew exactly what to say, and the people would come to the door. And one little boy came to the door. You could tell that he hadn't been awake too long. And he says, "My mama says we need toilet paper." She went back to the car and got toilet paper out of the trunk of the car and gave it to that child. I was certainly moved on that day. And while it was in its infancy, I'm glad to see that it's grown.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for not letting me omit the curriculum feature. At this time, it's the action agenda, and on this action agenda, the first item is the 2021-2022 budget adoption. Are there questions from board members about this item?
I just have one.
Ms. Thorpe?
And I'm guessing I'm right here, but since we don't have an adopted budget as I read through this, basically what we're doing is we're putting a placeholder into place off of a previous budget so that we can continue to operate, et cetera.
That's the key. As you remember, you approved back in June a interim budget that runs out November 30th. So we have to put into place a budget, and we have done the best we can based on the last version that we saw that has any numbers to it was Senate Bill 105 version 6. And so we have taken that to put together a state, but what we think is going to happen with the state budget. Then we also have, of course, the local and the federal included in this to make a complete budget. So that is what we're asking. And obviously, as soon as a state budget happens or doesn't happen, we will have to amend this and come forward with amendments as follows.
Thank you.
And we're still operating under 2018's budget, is that correct?
It was held, the ADM was held harmless in 1920, and then from 1920, then They had given us an initial ADM number this year that they are now highly unlikely to hold us harmless on our ADM.
So the answer to my question is yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Item number 2 is the procurement card program.
Don't we need to vote
Madam
on
Chair,
the budget?
we need a motion and a vote, I would think, on that.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Honestly,
Could I get a motion to approve Ms. Thorpe's budget adoption?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now to the procurement card. Boy, I'm wanting to jump through this agenda. Questions from the board on this item?
Madam Chair, I have a question on the very first page of the document that we received. Get back here where I was at. It speaks to the dates of August, provides an annual rebate incentive program based on standard large dollar purchase. Rebate period is August 1st through September 30th. I'm unclear about that. That's a window of time of 2 months. Is that when, just explain to me what that is.
All right, so with Bank of America, their window is August 1st of whatever year. If we started it in August 1st of this year, it goes until September 30th of the following year. It is a year.
So theoretically, then they would settle up by September 30th the following year, which would be a 14-month period.
Yes, they base it on the 12 months, but they are guaranteeing that we get our reimbursement by that period.
Thank you.
Other questions from board members?
I have a question, Madam Chair. So I'm just wondering why this is coming up now. What's prompted this?
You probably know from a lot of things from your personal life, it has become I'm going to give you a good example. This past school year, CTE put into place in many high schools a woodworking program. And if we search and try to find the equipment that goes in those woodworking programs with a purchase order, they will not take purchase orders. And we had to go with certain companies that locked us into higher prices that were losing money that could be turned into items for our students. This is to benefit our students overall and to be put back into the programs that we're getting overcharged for by having only a PO option or purchase order option is the whole goal of this.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I would ask, how many employees would be eligible to have a P card?
This will be mostly set up first by departments. We're going to start at central office that we have high needs in CTE, maintenance, school nutrition, and a few other areas right here at central office. Dr. Baldwin's area would need one. And then we would go through this process in a very slow, structured setup. You have to have the same internal controls to monitor this as you do a purchase order system. Everything runs through Link, our same software. They already have it in all LEAs already have this set up and approved because the state contract was awarded to Bank of America many years ago, and it's all the way through 26. And so many organizations, LEAs, are already taking advantage of this program. So it is very safe and secure. It is probably more safe than checks these days because you know how that works with what is on a check now. You can automatically set up an ACH draft with that information. So this protects, and there's a lot of internal controls with this and a lot of safety built into this program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other members of the board?
I just have one follow-up question. So because it's quicker, and I guess in layman's terms, is it's like me using my debit card at home. I ordered something online at night. The payment occurs basically instantaneously? Is that the way this is going to work, or is it still going to be a billing system?
There is a billing system with this. We still have to order federal and state cash, and it still has to be processed very similar to a purchase order. There is money allotted that is there for payment, but it's like then we have to process, and everything goes through an audit. Everything is verified before that payment is released.
It won't change, or correct me if I'm wrong, will it change much the pace at which contractors, vendors, et cetera, are getting paid from where we are today, or is that going to basically stay the same?
It will help us on our big items on the utilities and the U.S. Cellular bill and the other bills like that. That will help us with the process of a faster streamline and avoid any late fees or penalties or anything like that. It will help in a lot of the utilities.
And the technology and the firewalls and the things that we have through Barry Pace, for all the things technology through Buncombe County Schools, will still be a part of this, so that we're protecting access to that type of information.
Yes, all of this is built into our Link financial software, which is then backed up, and lots of security. We've actually had to go through a whole nother round of security with the insurance this year for cybersecurity and everything. So different levels are put into place. Yes, it is going to be under that same umbrella that we're already under for the Link software, which is our financial system.
Thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Madam Chair, or second?
Okay, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item on the agenda is the Clyde A. Irwin High School use of capital outlay allotment. Are there questions from the board on this item? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item, Johnston Elementary School and Haw Creek Elementary School proposed sidewalks and school properties and easement requests. Questions from the board?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mr. Fearley. You just thought you were going to get to stand outside all night.
On the maps that were provided, since I live in Haw Creek, I'm very familiar with the area around Haw Creek Elementary, and that makes a whole lot of sense to me. But when I look at this map of Johnston Elementary, it looks like a very tiny little area that we're offering an easement. So I'm just wondering, where is the sidewalk going that they would just need that tiny little area?
It's mostly across the street and follows, there's a couple of developments across the street, so it would connect those to this little crosswalk that's across from Johnston.
Gotcha. And do you happen to know whether the sidewalk will connect to Beaverview yet?
I don't know that. I don't know how far it goes.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that they know yet at both schools. They're in the, planning stages right now, and right now the construction economy is very volatile, and I think from what I understand, they're gonna go as far as they can.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Other questions from the board members? Max?
Mr. Fearley, on the sidewalk improvement, I am making an assumption that the municipal government, City of Asheville, would be assuming all costs associated with this.
That's correct.
There's nothing coming out of our funds to help support this.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item. The bus driver retention plan. Are there questions from the board on this item? Sure.
Madam Chair, or Dr. Baldwin, the way this is set up, the way the retention performance bonus is paid based upon the trips per calendar month, are those, and maybe I'm asking the wrong person, are those factored into the existing paycheck, or are those separate checks, and how will those be addressed for those individuals from a taxable standpoint?
It will be very similar to how we run the annual local supplement, and it'll be a separate check based on that.
And because of the amount of the number, does that change how it's looked at from a tax perspective, et cetera, or does it impact it at all?
Yes, I would like for the board to know and everyone listening to know that because we're on an annualized tax bracket, and that's required, that it would do the exact same thing as it does when we are paid multiple checks in a month. It looks at that as a annualized amount that you would be making, so there will be a little bit of a higher tax on it. However, it would wash out. If you don't owe that when you file your taxes after the year, you would get that back if you did not owe that. But it's relatively comparative to what you should be taxed on more income that you're bringing in throughout the month.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments from board members?
Can I just make one comment, Madam Chair?
Just one.
One. I actually wanted to just take a moment to, I read a lot of emails today in support of lots of these plans on the action agenda that we were looking at. But what really impressed me was that in just about every one of them from our employees, they really spoke up for the bus drivers. And they weren't bus drivers. So yeah, it was pretty awesome that they, it just made me feel like this is what it means to be part of a Buncombe County Schools family. These guys in their emails, for many of them, that's what they led with, was the bus drivers and how much they appreciated what they did, recognized the difficult position that they had, and just really pushed hard for this incentive. And I just really wanted to give a shout out to our employees because that just really meant a whole lot for me when I was reading it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I did have a question. I just want to clarify the bus driver retention plan. That is going to be in addition to the employee retention incentive, which we're going to get to next, correct? Our bus drivers will still qualify for that.
That's exactly correct. That is
Okay.
separate. It might help, Madam Chair, if you will allow me. Let me go through some bullet points so that especially for the public, they will hear this. Again, this is a bus driver retention and recruitment incentive. It is available for full-time, part-time, and substitute drivers. They are all eligible. It is retroactive in pay if approved by the board to October 1st of the current year, and it will extend through the end of the 21-22 current school year. It is $100 per month, and it's based upon 10 to 19 trips per month by that driver. It is $200 per month if it's 20 or more trips per month. And here's how we define trips. A trip will be defined as a clock in for that driver assignment such that the maximum will be one trip each morning and one trip each afternoon. And as you're going to hear in just a few seconds, I think we all understand with the bus driver crisis that we have, that we are exceeding single runs up to triple runs to simply take care and transport our students. The source of funding will be our ESSER federal funds. That's a total cost for this incentive of $500,000. Let me give you some rationale because I think that's extremely important. I think it's extremely important for the public to hear. Between mid-September and mid-October, that month, we had 27 school administrators, some of them are sitting up here in the audience tonight, that were driving bus runs in order to reduce the number of multiple runs. And again, I said up to triple runs in some cases in a morning or afternoon. Some cases, it meant trying to prevent a parked bus. Under pre-COVID times, it's hard to remember when we were in pre-COVID, isn't it? Under pre-COVID times, we were running 230 school buses across this entire district. Now again, you all know we're the 13th largest school system out of 115 in the state. We're a large system. Geographically, we are an extremely large system. Currently, we're operating 205. That's 25 less buses running. Why? It's due to the increased run by individual buses, and it also is caused for park buses. It's caused by park buses. Across the district, we now have 18 schools that have at least one bus parked due to driver shortage. Schools have used different methods to solve these problems, and I want to applaud David Roney, our transportation director, and all of these administrators for crisis management. We have school administrators, as I said, driving buses, and let me stop and tell you the problem with that from a safety standpoint. You've got a principal that's driving the bus in the morning for school. You've got a principal that jumps on there. I'm looking at one right now, Mr. Cody at Irwin High School. We got to remember why he's on that bus, taking care of that bus and those students. He's got students and teachers back at his school. Now, thank goodness he has a strong administrative team back there, but the principal is on that bus. We can't have that. That's a safety issue. Our administrators have got to be, that's one of the core trainings we learn, Mr. Huff, isn't it? In terms of school safety. You've got to have, the leadership's got to be there, central communications, knowing what's going on in their school. But they're on that bus to help our kids and our public. They're also, again, running up to multiple loads on those buses, and they're running extended first and second loads. So they're longer, even longer routes. So I think it's important to hear the rationale for this. That's a lot of funds, but that's a crisis. You're going to hear me a little later talk to you, and we had a speaker that looked at our vacancies. And I will tell you this, we are certainly not the only buffalo on the prairie. There's staff shortages across this entire area, Western North Carolina. There's shortages across this entire state and across this country. This is a crisis area. We don't bring our kids to school. We can't instruct them. We've got to safely get them home because we've got parents. We heard a parent tonight talking about her work schedule. Okay? That's a very focal point for us. So that is our first recommendation. Madam Chair, thank you for just allowing me some additional time to give details, because I think that's important. I want the public to hear why we're bringing this to you as a recommendation.
Yeah, I have a question, Dr. Baldwin. In your stats, you said we're driving 205 buses now. What did we drive prior to that?
230 pre-COVID.
230. Okay, thank you.
I have one more question to piggyback on to that, Dr. Baldwin. Does that, so the 25 buses that we have parked right now, will that affect our, the ridership, I'm seeing a head shake, the ridership and future funding then?
Mr. Huff, you want to answer that? That's our efficiency rating, I think.
Mr. Huff, I think they want you to go to the microphone.
I do appreciate David Roney compiling some information for us, and Dr. Baldwin has delivered that to you perfectly. I don't know the actual numbers from year to year, but I will tell you when I looked at them, you're talking somewhere around 1,000 in difference with different components. We've always talked about the perfect storm, whether it's COVID related or just the fact that we have a parked bus and we're having to do double or triple loads. So I can tell you from since 2020, those numbers have dropped probably about 1,000. Old numbers we used to use all the time was, and I'll just go back to when I was in transportation, 17,000 miles, a day. And I think the total bus numbers at that time was somewhere around 260. So over the years, and 17,000 students, because it was always matched up number of students and number of miles they were run. Now that number is down drastically over the last couple of years, but COVID has done it, and the staffing has done it as well. So I hope that answers your question. The only thing I wanted to add, I was sitting here just reflecting back on those days, about 7 or 8 years ago, and some of you on the board, I think Madam Chair and Pat Bryant, you'll remember during the polar vortex days, and I was so proud, emotionally proud at that I asked bus drivers, 2 or 3 from every district, to come and be recognized at that board night, and here we are in the winter months. So I just kind of want to add to what Dr. Baldwin said, especially going into the winter season, how important those bus drivers are. And we've talked about them being the tip of the spear and how effective that is when there's a smiling face that's there early in the morning. You know, I know we have car riders, but when that bus driver is out there and be that first smiling face and what that does to be impactful on their day. So hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we approve this bus driver retention plan.
All right, could I get a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we're on to the employee retention incentive.
Madam Chair, this is certainly the next item that I bring to you is compared to the retention recruitment incentive for bus drivers. It's a much larger ticket item, and so I say that in that I want also for our community stakeholders to understand that, in fact, each of these 3 recommendations is going to involve the use of what our federal ESSER funds, and the reason we have ESSER funds is to address the issues of COVID, the impact of COVID. We're able to bring these to you, these recommendations to you, because the ESSER funds do address 2 of the key issues that I think link all 3 of them together. First, it recognizes the importance of addressing staff retention. Again, a point made earlier, staff retention, keeping those we currently have employed. That's a challenge across businesses, public service agencies, all near us, around us, far from us. It also recognizes the importance of student and staff mental, social, and emotional wellness. The availability of these funds for us to even consider this, I also want the public to understand that it's tied in to the challenge of the staffing shortage, because with our best intent with ESSER funds for support in those schools, we're running up against few candidates to fill the new positions that we want to hire to bring in. So that void right now is allowing us some flexibility with these funds. I think that's important for everybody to understand how we're able to come to you for this request. I also should have started my presentation by citing one of the headlines in today's Asheville Citizen Times. And it references the current labor crisis. And I think it's pretty well put. It says that current crisis is not only a perfect storm, but a hurricane, tornado, and earthquake rolled into one. I think that really sums it up again in some of the challenges, many of the challenges that we have in terms of our staff. Second recommendation I'm bringing to you has to do with permanent and part-time permanent BCS employee retention incentive. And this will be prorated based on the percent employed. If an employee is works 50 to 100% of the time, they will be eligible for what we're asking, $1,200 per individual. If it's less than 50%, they would be eligible for $600. And this incentive will be split evenly into 2, either $600 or $300 payments, and they will be paid on December 31st, 2021, or May 31st, 2022. The source of the funding, again, is the ESSER funds, total cost, and it is a large ticket item, $5,750,000. Now let's talk, as we did with the bus driver center, let's talk about rationale for this. One of the best examples that I can provide you, the board, has to do with retention challenges that we're facing currently. I just received a piece of data just a few days ago, Ms. Fisher, from our HR department. Between April and October of 2020, compared to that same more recent 6-month period of time in 2021, again, that's between April and October, we have experienced a 44% increase in the number of employee separations from Buncombe County Schools. Within these 602 total separations, 300 were licensed teachers and support staff, certified employees, while 302 were classified or hourly based employees. That also represents the highest total of employee separations from job assignments over the past 4 years. Needless to say, common sense will tell you the tremendous negative impact COVID has had. And again, this isn't just reflective of Buncombe County schools. I talk to superintendents across this state every day. It's reflective of school systems across this state. And it certainly, as I referenced in the article, it's reflective of businesses, corporations, public service agencies, organizations all across the country. Based on today's vacancies, we have 18 openings for licensed teachers and support staff. We have 17 teacher assistant openings. We have 5 office or clerical position vacancies. We have 21 maintenance or custodial openings. We have 18 child nutrition staff priorities, those positions. And we have 41 transportation or bus driver vacancies. Now, you hear me talk about licensed, certified, hourly based, classified. Let me tell you what, that custodian in that building, in my opinion as superintendent, is just as important to the operation, efficient operation of that school as our best classroom teacher, our teacher of the year. And our teachers of the year, I promise you, would stand right here and say the same thing. Bus drivers, we don't transport them. How do we get them to school? For many students, it's so dependent. Thankfully, we do have a lot of parents that are able to transport their children. But again, we have a high percentage. Because remember, just our free and reduced rate, we're over 50%. It's challenging out there. Work schedules even are certainly challenge our parents for transportation. So that is, again, I just want you to realize currently, today, these are the openings and the vacancies. And I would also say to you, for a number of these positions that have been advertised that I just referenced, we're probably looking at maybe the second or third time around to advertise them because we've had 0 applicants. Or the applicants that have come to us don't meet background checks. They don't meet just the basic requirements that we have for our employees to be in this school system. So this is a tremendous challenge. So I think it's certainly a way that we can step back, and it's one thing to recruit, okay, because you're so dependent upon the pool of those candidates out there. But it's another thing that we have far more control over to retain and recognize the people that we have in this school system. And thank goodness, we have such a high percentage of dedicated employees at all of those categories. Office staff. In today's COVID world, I'm in the schools. Let me tell you what, I'd challenge anybody up here in this room to sit in that office staff seat and handling the phone calls that come in, handling the COVID cases. I'm incredibly fortunate to have Ms. Matthews. I sit back and I hear her phone calls, what she's handling. You want to talk about pressure? Okay, and it's just, again, we're in a situation that's very challenging, and it's showing. This is simply this is just a sign of the time. So that's what we're bringing to you, and that's the rationale, Madam Chair.
All right. Is there a motion? Are there questions for Dr. Baldwin?
I'd just like to say thank you. I think sometimes it's really easy to peek in through the window and see the numbers that are out there and say, oh my gosh, they have this amount of vacancies. But a lot of time and careful consideration has been put into this plan, and I just want to say thank you to Dr. Baldwin and the team that have put that together, and I realize that you're being proactive and trying to hold on to our current employees, and there's no way to make everybody happy. I think part of that proactiveness is, we can see complaints from parents on part of the proactiveness, but I just want to say, as a former teacher, I appreciate it, and I know a lot of our teachers are very, very appreciative, and ultimately we've got to keep them in the building.
Thank you. Others?
Madam Chair, I would just say, Dr. Baldwin, I think you hit the main point on the head, and it's not unique to public schools, but any time you can retain quality people in any business environment, any school setting, a bank, construction company, I don't care where it is, if you've got good people and you have an opportunity to retain them, that in the long run, not just financially, but the knowledge that you keep working in your school system, the experience that you keep, the navigation skills for working through problems, pandemics, bus shortages, tutoring for students, all of those types of things, if we can keep that in our buildings, then at the end of the day, who we're trying to serve, those students are positively impacted by that. And so I echo your thoughts as well for coming up with this. I do have one question, and I think I know the answer, but I think the public would like to know. So we're using some ESSER funds, and we're not taking from something to be able to use it. And these are sunsetted funds that are only here for 3 years. But there's nothing that keeps us, whether it be the second half of this year or the following year or the year after, should we as a board see the need to do more, to be able to do more, is there?
No, you're exactly right. And, I would certainly with that recognize the job that Mrs. Swanger is doing, because she facilitates a very comprehensive committee that looks at these in details. In fact, two of our board members are representatives in that committee, so you're absolutely right. They constantly look at the one constant, speaking of constant, is what in COVID land? Change. So we need to be flexible and be able to react, because we don't know what's ahead of us. So you're absolutely right. All of this could easily be revisited in February or March, because COVID is not going away, and the pressures and the stress and the living under some type of protocol is going to be with us for a while.
Thank you.
Others? I'd entertain a motion to approve this recommendation.
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'll second it, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. We caught Mr. Bryant taking a drink, and he's about just drowned over there. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, the next item is the consideration for BCS return to learn plans, local space covering policies, Senate bill, sorry.
Skipped one, Madam Chair.
What?
Calendar change.
Sorry.
21, 22.
I got it. I just wrote all over the top of it, taking notes. Sorry, I apologize. Now, with 2021-2022 calendar change, and that's also Dr. Baldwin and Suzanne. I apologize.
I was a little
I'm
bit
just-
out of order too.
Questions from board members?
Let me give you just some bullet points. Maybe that would help everyone.
We'll let you go first.
And I'm going to say up front with this, we struggled with this request. We've actually came to you with a revision. And I want to explain why. We're asking to adjust the current school calendar, our most recent request to you, and to recognize Tuesday, November 23rd as an optional teacher workday. The current calendar shows this date as a regular instructional day for students, with our Thanksgiving holiday beginning the following day on the 24th. There will be no remote instruction with this particular recommendation coming to you. Both certified and hourly paid employees would have the opportunity to take accrued leave. And while our school buildings will remain open that day, an option to work remotely from home will be available for all staff, both certified and hourly paid. Why? It is due to the extensive existing amount of required professional development all of our employees have to be completed in this school year. And that completion of that online training can take place at home, again, if that individual has remote virtual access and they have a computer. An accountability system will be in place, and everybody hear this loud and clear. Unless that person takes leave, if they opt to take the professional training, this isn't a stay-home free card. They're required to work. An accountability system will be in place. Fortunately, there's some silver linings in what we went through last year, and beginning actually March of 2020. And that is we've perfected some of these systems, especially of accountability with remote instruction. So that accountability system will be in place to ensure that the assigned tasks are successfully completed. The day will not be made up during our academic year, and that source of funding from ESSER funds will be at a total cost of $200,000, and that's primarily to cover the costs on a optional teacher workday for our hourly based classified staff, certain categories. Now, again, as I said, we struggled with this one. You received a revision fairly late. So we had an initial recommendation that we were ready to bring to you that would make both Monday the 22nd and Tuesday the 23rd of November remote instructional days for students. Now that's different. Remember, what we sent to you most recently is an optional teacher workday for that one day. Initially, we looked at both days, which is essentially the entire week for the Thanksgiving holiday. But it was remote learning for both of those days. But based upon further guidance that we received, again, after the fact from DPI, in addition to further clarification from our esteemed board attorneys, we revised that recommendation. And as you are aware, and I don't know if the public's aware, but we have new state law that now allows us up to 30 hours of remote instruction that can be used, and very importantly for us, it can be counted toward the required annual instructional hours and days that we have set before us. We must meet that standard. And according to the guidance we received, these days would not count since inclement weather nor an emergency building closure was involved. So that was the motivation that prompted us for the revision. The current proposal also takes into account the uncertainty of our winter months ahead. and the potential for significant inclement weather, forcing the loss of instructional time, requiring makeup adjustments in order to be in compliance with our state calendar law. And remember, for a number of years, when I first became superintendent, I think, gosh, I can't remember how many years I've been superintendent. That tells you something, right? But I know for sure the first 8 years, we had a waiver from the state in terms of start time and stop time. We no longer have that. Now, why? Probably for all of us, it's a good thing because we've had very mild winters recently. I'd say over the last 5 years, fairly mild winter. But I've lived here all my life, so I'm like our maintenance director. I believe in those tales and our traditions that you never know what Mother Nature's going to bring around the corner. And so we have to be cognizant of that. So this recommendation that I currently gave to you does take that in consideration, or tries to the best of our ability, because it's still predictions. Therefore, in recognition of the stress levels experienced by our employees, combined with their dedicated efforts to recover and accelerate student learning thus far this school year, we are recommending this additional day for our staff to have the flexibility to catch up on work responsibilities or to begin the Thanksgiving Day holiday sooner, because they can take accrued leave. So there is that option. We also understand, we heard from a parent, that's a legitimate concern. We understand the challenge that's posed to our families in adjusting this calendar change. However, we feel that the health and well-being of our staff, students, and families is a priority as we continue coping with the disruptions that are associated with this pandemic. And I think I said this earlier in my superintendent comments. We've got to understand that a recovery effort is here for a while. We're trying to recover. We've been in school now 51 days. We're nowhere near completing a recovery for a year and a half. You heard me say, last year, for example, last year alone, 27% of the year, we were in our 5-day-a-week mode that we began this school year. This is a very good thing. But we're in that recovery. And we've got to understand that our teachers, our support staff, everyone is focused, they're dedicated toward that, but it's taking a toll on them too. If you don't believe me, walk through those schools. Out in the grocery stores, church, talk to those teachers, talk to those custodians, talk to those bus drivers. It has been, again, the dedication they have to the recovery of our kids. But we're all also recovering too. That's the thing I want to make sure the board hears loud and clear from me as superintendent, because it's a challenge out there. So this is at least an opportunity, it's just an outreach to say, we understand that, we recognize that. And it's important to our school system that we look out for our staff. And again, the health of our students and families. Everyone's going through this. This is just not Buncombe County schools or educators by any stretch of the imagination. It's all of us in this great recovery challenge. Now, good news is the next topic I'm going to talk with you about, I'm going to bring you again for the second month in a row, some real positive news. So there's a light at the end of this tunnel.
It's a long dadgum tunnel.
It's a long tunnel, but there's light there. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Baldwin. Are there questions for Dr. Baldwin from the board?
So, Dr. Baldwin, my understanding is that we started with this idea of 2 asynchronous learning days. and I have gotten lots of emails today and this week in support of that idea from our teachers who are very, very tired. And if we were to do those 2 asynchronous learning days, we could provide meals for our kids who need it the most. Is that correct? And not if we have this optional teacher work day. Is that true?
That is correct. We talked with Ms. Payne, so there is allowance. And again, this goes back to the March 20. And if you remember when we were all remote, it does give our child nutrition an opportunity to come into that building, prepare meals, and at a minimum, provide them for pickup on campus with the potential for possible delivery. We'd have to work through that. But yes, that is an advantage of declaring that.
Because I have a dual concern about switching from the 2-day remote learning option to this single optional workday. One is feeding those kids who need it the most the week of Thanksgiving. I just hate to think about those kids going hungry when there's going to be so much food on the table at my house. And then second, when we do have all of our staff, not just teachers, all of our staff who have been working so hard and really struggling in a year that I think we thought would be better, and it hasn't been. It has been maybe a little bit better. We're all happy that we do have the kids in the classroom, but there have been so many stresses on our teachers this year, and I think folks were very excited to see the possibility of those 2 extra days, even though they will be putting in work for that to be an asynchronous learning day. It's not just a day necessarily to sit home and put your feet up, but you get a little bit of a breather to put that out there and then pull it back again and say it's just going to be 1 optional teacher work day. I have a hard time with that. So I would lean much more towards going with your original recommendation, even knowing that it's a bit of a risk in terms of our calendar, not knowing what the weather's going to bring. Are we going to have to pay for it later with maybe a day that we don't want to have to pull back? But to me, that it's a matter of balancing these risks. And so we've talked so much about retaining our teachers, taking care of our teachers, and all of our other staff. It's more of a risk, I think, to not give them those 2 days than it is this concern about the weather.
Other comments or questions?
Madam Chair, I would just echo those thoughts, and I have a question, Dr. Baldwin, and I'm going to the original memo that referenced the 2 days being remote learning days. And it references students will have 5 days to complete assignments. Can you or Ms. Swanger touch on that? Because if we do that on Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday through Sunday are holidays and weekend. And so is that the next week 5 days? What is that, and does that number need to be adjusted or more defined?
We can certainly add more clarity to that. What we do on remote learning days is, because it's the flexibility for a student to log on and complete those 4 hours worth of learning tasks or assignments, you've got 5 days to do that. Yeah, we don't want students working on Thanksgiving Day, and I know that our teachers will be flexible, but we do need to see the work completed so that it can be graded and that they can count towards attendance. So we can talk with principals when we meet tomorrow to say, what day can we all agree upon that if this is the course that we're following, what is the date that all work must be completed?
Yeah, and I think that's important because it's the design of these days for buildings being closed for winter, for example. It creates a different set of criteria than this does coming right before that holiday period. So
this one is totally different. So we need to
working
make
through
sure.
that so that that's positive for the most students that it can be, and yet realistic, I think is would be, and 5 days may be the right number, I don't know, but I wanted to
We just
ask
need to
that question.
define those 5 days because the holidays included. And I think that, as Dr. Baldwin has mentioned, we're all learning to do school, and we just can't flip the switch and go back to prior to March 2020. And school is different. So we are working to better learn and better provide clarity for those kinds of questions.
Well, and I think sometimes as we look at data and numbers, I know I do, and I have to correct myself, but my old friend, former board member, Mr. Steve Sizemore, I thought had a great quote one time, and he said, we got to remember we're not dealing with widgets. I mean, these are real live people and their children and their families and all the extended, I get that, but we got to keep that in mind as well, that we're dealing with kids and the adults that they live with, the adults that work with them, the adults that teach them, et cetera. So that's why I wanted to get some clarification.
Thank you. Other questions? Comment? I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Madam Chair, I move that we go back to the original recommendation of 2 remote learning days for Monday and Tuesday of that week, rather than the optional teacher workday.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Now then, I'd like to have a motion to approve. I just got a motion. Can I get, it's late, boys and girls.
Any other discussion?
Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I guess that's done. I don't know. I'm confused. Okay, now we're on the consideration for the return to learn plans and local face covering policies per Senate Bill 654. Dr. Baldwin.
We have a PowerPoint that, a lot of slides, but all right. I thought our vacancy was going to come true. We don't even have support to help the presenter. Right. Okay. Right here. Just a reminder to the board, to the public, about our legal requirement to meet on a monthly basis. That is in Senate Bill 654 that became effective on August 30th, 2021. We've used this slide before. These are the key metrics. This was provided to us, an update, thanks to Ms. Matthews for putting this together for us. And again, as I said, I've got very positive news for us. This is the 3rd month in a row that these particular metrics, all 4 of these, constitute an overall pattern of decreasing numbers. The daily number of people currently hospitalized, the daily cases reported, the positive test, that positivity rate, what the percentage of emergency room visits during the season are for COVID-like illness. So we're seeing some good trends, and those are 4 key metrics. Let's talk about Buncombe County Schools. Number of staff and student positive new cases since October 6th gives us that month view. 47 positive cases from staff. Again, that's both teacher, certified support, and classified hourly based support staff. 259 students. Okay, we want to see those numbers certainly get out of the triple digits, don't we? But let me give you a comparison. What I presented to you last month at the board meeting was September 2nd through October 6th. Again, 1 month. We had 62 staff cases. We're now at 47. And get this, we were at 631 student cases, and we're now at 259. I'd say that's a positive trend. Might recall that on August 13th at our board meeting, you, the board, approved a set of metrics. And I think I said this at the last board meeting. Very proud of this board because I still get calls from school systems across the state wanting to know, how did you develop, how did the board develop these metrics? And remember, we focused in on 2 key metrics, right? And we said, as a benchmark only and subject to consideration of all factors, relevant factors, the Board of Education would consider a change in face covering protocol in consultation with our local Health and Human Services if the following local metrics were realized. I'm going to move to hopefully what we're going to be looking at each month, and that is reducing or amending those requirements. 2 metrics, the percent positivity rate, it has to remain below the state average, okay? And Buncombe County has to be coded as yellow or blue on the CDC level of community transmissions, MAP, and the number of students and staff positive cases and quarantines have to show a pattern of lessening over a 2-week period of time. One metric that remains concerning for us is the level of community transmission. That's the one that we're just checking each morning because the CDC updates that on a daily basis. But again, it's I think it's Ms. Matthews, is it a week or is it a week average or 2 weeks? A week. A week, 1 week, okay? All right, let's look at those 2 metrics. Percent positivity, and let's compare them. Again, wow, are we seeing the trends moving in the right direction for us? Last month, percent positivity in Buncombe County was 6.9, and in the state it was 9.2. Okay, on November 3rd, it's today the 4th, that would have been yesterday, Buncombe County, 4.4, 0.1 underneath the state at 4.5. What was, remember the magic number we were looking for? We wanted it below 5%. Okay, extremely good sign. Now let's look at the level of community transmissions. Very slow. If you look at the entire state, and again, last month, all counties in North Carolina in red, and red stands for high community transmission. Now, if you look at it, as of yesterday, what are we starting to see? We're starting to see some breaks. As you look across the state, we're actually starting to see some moderate levels of community transmission. We just want to get to orange. So like I say, we're checking that every morning. Again, slow, but it's certainly moving in the right direction for our entire state. Did want to give you, and this changes, by the way, we looked at this yesterday. I think it was yesterday. No, it's actually back on the 29th. This changes constantly because boards have separate days when they meet. So what we're seeing, again, if you compare last month to this month, you're seeing that trend in systems being able to look at their individual data and looking toward optional face coverings. Okay, we're seeing those little breaks across the state, which I think is a good thing. We also have to remember we've got to depend upon the help of our community because we are going to be entering into the holiday season. And as I walked out this morning at 5 o'clock, it was cold. And so I tried to hustle to get inside somewhere. Okay? So we got to be diligent. All right. This is the most recent guideline that came to us from the State Department of Health and Human Services, and you recall that what we look as our primary resource, all school systems across the state, is what we call the Public School Toolkit. So this has just recently been added. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I'm going to try to hit the three most important sentences. North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services recommends schools continue to implement a universal face covering requirement if they are located in a county with high or substantial community transmission levels. When the community transmission levels decline to moderate or low for at least 7 consecutive days, school leaders can consider making face coverings optional for vaccinated individuals. Face coverings should continue to be required for all unvaccinated individuals until community transmission is at low levels, when masks could be optional for everyone. Now again, let me emphasize with this. You remember the shift that occurred in our toolkit from last year to this year. Where everything is moved this year is basically recommendations or strong recommendations. Far, far fewer requirements. But this is the guidance that we continue to look toward. This is coming from our public health experts in the state. But that's important to realize that that has been provided to us. And the other piece of that I think we also need to recognize is that our Board of Commissioners, they've extended the countywide face covering requirement for all indoor public spaces through November 30th. 2021. So that has been extended. And I want to end with just for the public and for parents of 5 to 11-year-olds that are looking at the potential for vaccinations for their children. That's certainly their choice. That these particular clinics will be sponsored across the county by our local health and human services and our campuses. You can see them where they're located, that on those particular Saturdays and on those particular campuses, there will be vaccination clinics that are focusing on ages 5 to 11. So I did want to make sure that we provided that to the public, and I'm sure that's going to be promoted and advertised on a lot of different local media outlets. So, any questions?
Dr. Baldwin, do you know if they will have to have an appointment to go to one of these, or will it be just a walk-in or drive-in?
Okay.
Walk-in.
Walk-in.
Okay.
Walk-in.
All right, you be sure and take your 5-year-old to that, Miss Churchill.
Thinking of my fellow neighbor. Speaking of, I would like to take just a moment, point of privilege here.
Well, wait just a minute, okay?
Okay.
Let's get this taken care of. So your recommendation is that we continue?
That we maintain.
Uh-huh. Okay, so are there questions for Dr. Baldwin in this regard?
No question, a comment later.
Okay. So I'd entertain a motion to approve this recommendation.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Ms. Churchill.
Well, I just wanted to take a moment, just a little personal moment here, though, to thank our community for what they have been doing. These numbers don't just go down by themselves. COVID doesn't just decide to take a little break. It's because of what's been going on out there in the community, our community members really working hard to try to get us these lower levels. And not only, one of the things that, you didn't really go over, Dr. Baldwin, but not only have we seen a decrease in our, percent positives, we've actually seen a decrease, pretty significant in our hospitals. And as a healthcare worker, I appreciate the hard work that has gone in to making that happen, and people just really doing their part. So I just wanted to point that out, that keep up the good work. We will definitely get through this. Hopefully that tunnel is not as long as we originally thought. So thank you.
Thank you. On the consent agenda, we have the minutes of October 7, the personnel report, review of the E-rated contract for wide area network services, records, retentions, and disposals of requests. Advisory Council requested change and add members. Policy for second reading is Policy 6220, operation of school food services. Could I get a motion to approve this agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? On the information agenda, we have the Verner Child Care Learning Center update, and our next meeting will be December 2nd with a work session and closed session beginning at 4 p.m. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm sorry, you guys. I just kind of checked out.